Welcome to the Florida Bar Commission on Professionalism continuing video historical series. We're very privileged to have with us this afternoon a great trial lawyer and a great Chief Justice of the Florida Supreme Court, Justice Raymond Ehrlich of Jacksonville. Justice Ehrlich, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Would you tell us a little bit about your roots, where you grew up and what influenced you to become a lawyer?
I was born in Swainsboro, Georgia, and in 1918, and I had a brother and a sister going to college, and father determined he had to make more money down in Florida than he was making in Georgia, so we moved to Crescent City. That's in the south end of Putnam County. And I went to school, high school there. I had a professor or a teacher that thought I'd make a good chemist, I'd be a good scientist. And wasn't any question where I was going to college. Going to Florida because the costs were absolutely minimal. And I followed his counsel for three and a half years. Spent most of my life in the laboratory, and I finally concluded that I would not be anything more than mediocrity as a chemist, and so I changed majors. I told my father that the sad news, and he said, "Well, what are you going to do now?" I said, "Well, I think I'll go to law school. It doesn't cost anything." And so I ended up in law school.
Would you tell us a little bit about your career at the University of Florida College of Law? I know you had an outstanding career, graduating Phi Beta Kappa and with the highest honors. Tell us a little bit what it was like in law school during the time you were there.
The law school was relatively small. I think our class had 40, maybe 50 students. The physical plant was minimal, so as all other physical plants on the campus. Considering at the time, the state didn't appropriate any money for the university in those days. The faculty was not the greatest in the world. They had about 7 professors. They had been there for varying periods of time and stayed there for varied periods of time. We were told that Florida was the second finest state law school next to Michigan, and of course we believed it. In retrospect, I'm not sure that was quite accurate. But at any rate, it was a small group, a small school, and you knew everybody. And there were some people who finished the law school that made outstanding careers nationally as well as in Florida. So I don't belittle it. Compared to today's law school, I think it was de minimis. But we had the diploma privilege, and we got out, and the thing to do would be to practice law. And so we didn't know any better, and I worked hard. I worked hard. I had I think, an unusually good class, the one that I was in. One of the 4 top was Maloney. Turned out to be a dean of the law school. I can't remember the other 2, and I stayed through law school and was able to graduate at the outbreak of war. So I was very fortunate. I didn't have to come back to finish my schooling, and passing the bar was very perfunctory. I met with the chief guy of the Board of Bar Examiners outside his office, and he asked me a half a dozen questions, and I was a member of the bar in 1942. And of course, I was in service. But when I got out, 4.5 years later, I didn't having the administrative pitfalls to surmount, but I'd been away from law a long time, and I thought it was a strange subject.
When you came out of the service, I believe you served in the Navy in World War II, is that
Yes,
correct?
sir.
Yes, sir. Where did you choose to practice, and what brought you to your initial practice of law?
Well, there wasn't any practice going on in Crescent City, and I didn't think there was much hope of doing much in Putnam County, and so I had a professor at school, Manning Dower, who suggested that I talk to Pat Conroy, and he'd give me the names of some firms in town, and I met Mr. Conroy, and he gave me half a dozen names, or a dozen names, and I just knocked on doors, and when I got to the last one, I got a job, and I was just elated and delighted. Even though the salary was $125 a month, I had a job, and jobs were hard to come by.
And who was that job with, sir?
It was a firm that had just broken off from another firm. It was Osborne, Kopp, C-O-P-P, and Markham. And I worked for a fellow named Markham. Fortuitously, he did trial work. As it was insurance defense work. But it gave me, I aspired to be a trial lawyer, and this gave me an opportunity. And in those days, the apprenticeship went in for a long time. I carried his bags for many, many years. I guess I'd been working for him for 4 years before I ever got to try a case. But that's the way things were done, as I understood it, in those days.
Who were the mentors that helped you out in the formative years of practicing law?
I think Markham shaped more of my professional life than anyone else. He was prominent in the state. He was on the Board of Regents, is what is now known as the Board of Regents. Very interested in education, particularly the University of Florida. And I guess I learned whatever I knew from him, and whatever pitfalls there were, I picked up from him. The bar was relatively small in Jacksonville, and we tried an awful lot of cases in those days, so I came into contact with a lot of the best members of the bar. Chester Bedell was one of the icons of the practice, and I was thrown into his company and in litigation involving him. And there were lots of others, most of whose names slip me now, but it was, I think, a pretty good bar.
What was the practice of law like after World War II in your beginning days in the practice? How is it different from what it is today?
Well, it was smaller. We had 5 circuit judges. All of them were fairly ancient. The bar was small. You knew all the members of the bar. When you had a bar meeting, an annual gathering, you knew just about everybody there. It was a lot more informal. I have to say, I thought that, or I think that by and large, the professionalism was good. If you did a fellow in, it didn't take it long to get around. And I think it had a salutary effect. The practice was far different. There were 2 lawyers in Jacksonville that had a corner on all the tort litigation. And they handled most of them, and you get to try with these characters. They were characters, by and large, although there were a lot of other fellows that picked up cases, but they got them all. They had runners. One of them was, or maybe both of them had been, at one point, were sanctioned by the bar, but we didn't have an elaborate system for matters of this sort, ethics or how you demeaned yourself. If you complained to somebody, the Supreme Court had to appoint someone to take testimony. It was a long, drawn-out process, and it wasn't alluded to as much as utilized as much as it might have been. But it wasn't an unpleasant experience at all. I would lots rather have been thrown into that group than to start practice today where there's 1,800 lawyers and you don't know anybody. It was you knew the judges knew you on a first name basis. It was like old home week.
You were known in your time as one of the outstanding trial lawyers in the state. Can you give us some of the secrets of your success and reputation as a trial lawyer?
To be candid, that's an exaggeration. I never considered myself an outstanding trial lawyer. The only thing I knew is work. My boss worked long hours, and I worked long hours, 7 days a week. I didn't live a full life, and I regret it. And I tell our new associates up here, just don't do it that way. And get out and do some other things. But that's all Markham wanted out of him is work, and he got it. I just think that hard work is about the only way you get to be a decent lawyer. I remember asking one of my professors at the university, Bill McRae, he was later a federal judge, how long it took to be a good lawyer, and he said 10 years. And I thought he was spoofing, but he was right. I think he was correct. After
several years, you became a named partner in one of the outstanding law firms in Jacksonville. Can you tell us a little bit about Matthews, Osborne, and Ehrlich?
Well, Mr. Markham, who gave me my job, and the other two partners were much older, and they died or retired. And Jack Matthews and I had become good friends. He was partners with a fellow named John McNatt. And Jack was in the legislature, and his partner wanted to be a judge, and Jack said, I can assure him of a judgeship, and I can take his practice, and you come over, and we'll make a go at it. Well, I stalled him on the thing because I could not walk away from Mr. Markham, and it developed that his health deteriorated, and we were able to work out a system of accommodation whereby he was taken care of, and so we joined forces. And Osborne was the senior partner's son. He was wonderful, and we had started off with a fairly decent practice and a good reputation. Jack Matthews was an excellent trial lawyer, and in the course of time we grew to what we thought was a big firm. I think we were 25 of us. There came a time when Matthews and Osmond both became ill and incapacitated and left the firm. Well, I was devastated because those two guys and I worked together. We saw each other every day. And at about that time, a fellow who was on the board Judicial Nominating Commission kept bugging me. He said, Arthur England is retiring. Put your name in the hopper. And I said, I don't aspire to be a judge. He never let up, and he said, well, I'm sending you an application. On the last day, I sent an application in without discussing it with my wife or my partners, which shows you the level of intelligence that I had at that point in time.
Well, as they say, the rest is history, because in 1981, then Governor Graham appointed you to serve as a justice on the Florida Supreme Court. What sticks out most in your mind in your distinguished service on that court?
Well, serendipity played an awful big role in my getting the appointment. Grimes and Justice Grimes and a judge out of the 3rd District, whose name slips me for the moment. Those were the other two. And the fact that I got the appointment, I say it was just the grace of God. And I was elated, delighted, but surprised. And I was surprised that it was a great learning process. I thought being a judge was just like being a lawyer, but an appellate judge, but it was a lot different. It was a great learning experience.
While you were a justice, you were known around the state as one of the most prepared, careful, considerate, and patient judges that we had. Having been an active trial lawyer for some 35 years, did taking the bench, that role, frustrate you in terms of what you were doing?
No, by the same, just the opposite. I was exhilarated, but I never forgot that I had been a lawyer, and I never forgot what it was like to stand in the well of the court, and I never forgot what it was like to argue cases to a court. And I vowed that I would demean myself accordingly. I remember some of the experiences I had at the trial level and the appellate level, and I said, it'll never happen. I'll never let it happen while I'm an appellate judge. And so once I got the hang of it, and the help from my brethren on the court, it was a very, very satisfying experience, a great learning experience. I wouldn't have traded it for anything in the world.
Justice Ehrlich, you were a very strong advocate of professionalism before that term became fashionable, so to speak. In one of your opinions, you wrote, "Our adversary system hangs on the slender thread of the integrity of the lawyer." Can you tell us what you meant by that?
Well, the lawyer is the key to the system. Without the lawyer, you've got no system. He's an officer of the court, and it all depends on the lawyer. If the bar is lousy, you've got nothing. The public will hate you, even though we do have, I think, a great bar. The public still doesn't perceive of the true role of the lawyer. The lawyer is the one that makes the system work, and his integrity is paramount. The system wouldn't survive without a lawyer who is a man of integrity. I believed it then more than I had ever thought about it before, and I thought lawyers have a unique place in our system. There has to be someone, no matter what you call him, that partakes of the role of the lawyer. And I felt it was imperative that the reputation of the lawyer should be untarnished, should be above reproach. When I grew up in rural Georgia, lawyers were all called colonel because they were the esteemed members of society. And that's the way I felt that lawyers ought to be. They ought to be the esteemed members of society because of the unique and responsible role that they occupy in our system.
Several years ago, in an interview you gave with the Florida Bar Journal, you described yourself as pro-lawyer and said in part in response to a question, "I believe very fervently in the role of the lawyer in our system of justice. When a lawyer ceases to be professional, then he should cease to be a lawyer." Have you seen the role of the lawyer in our system diminished during the time of your practice?
I don't think I've seen it diminished. I've seen the reputation up and down from time to time, but because of the great importance that I attached to the role that the bar plays in the administration of justice, I just felt that a lawyer had to be, what do they say, like Caesar's wife, above suspicion. And when I was in a position to do something about it, I was considered a hawk because if there was a transgression by a lawyer, I was sort of unforgiving, depending on what it was. I just didn't think that he did the system any good, and I was for when the lawyer transgressed, if he stole or he lied or he cheated, I was for kicking him out of the bar.
Frequently, you were alone as a single voice for disbarment of lawyers who violated the bar's rules, particularly the ethical rules that you've just summarized. Was that a deliberate position that you came into your position as a justice with?
I think it grew on me, really. My brethren on the court were honorable people, but I think our perception of the lawyer was somewhat different. I say a serious transgression, I thought, ought to, you take the lawyer's shingle. They were more forgiving. Well, everybody sins, and you have to pardon their sins. I didn't feel that way with the lawyer. I just felt that he's the linchpin that makes the system work, and you couldn't afford to have a weak linchpin. It had to be strong.
As the Chief Justice of our Supreme Court, you accomplished much. The renovation of the Supreme Court building, increased funding for our judiciary, law clerks for trial judges. What were some of the goals that you set for yourself when you assumed the position of Chief Justice, and were you able to accomplish those goals?
I never looked on myself as an innovator, of somebody who was going in and redo the system. I thought the system had worked fairly satisfactorily and was working satisfactorily. Improvements had to be made from time to time. I worked very closely with the trial bench. After all, it was the trial bench was very important in making the system go. I fought very hard to get more judges, and I did. And I thought that they needed more compensation, and I was fortunate. As it turned out, subsequent Chief Justices had a lot better luck than I had getting money. Money was freer later on. But I did not find, I didn't think that there were any fundamental defects that required an overhaul. There may have been some, maybe I was myopic. But I wanted to make the system as I knew it and as I had practiced in it, both as a trial lawyer and as an appellate judge, continue to work. And I thought the weaknesses were the necessity for more judges and an adequate compensation. And I had no agenda. Some people had agendas, some of our chiefs had agendas. I never had one, whether we're going to do this, that, and the other. I was willing to let the status quo ride as long as it continued to make incremental improvements, and I felt that I was successful in that endeavor.
Speaking for lawyers throughout the state, and I think judges, one of the important things you were able to give to the court while you were Chief Justice was a sense of warmth and accessibility to the court that had not been known before. And one of the things that I think facilitated that was your unique sense of humor. Can you share with us some of the amusing things that happened to you on the court?
I like stories. Most of them I can't tell, but I like stories, and if I heard a good one, I would share it with my brethren. And Justice Barquette enjoyed them more than some of the fellows did. I was very sensitive to how the court treated lawyers. And when I was chief, I wanted to make the litigants who appeared in front of the court to feel at home, not to have any ill at ease, and I think there was no need to be afraid. Nobody was going to bite them or bark at them. We're all in a common cause, and I thought I enjoyed it from the standpoint of moving things along. And there were a couple of occasions that I had to talk to my brother on an individual basis about what I thought was expected of the court. First, not to go to sleep. There was a little sleeping done on occasion. But to treat lawyers who came before the court as a friend of the court, and he was trying to help us from the standpoint of advocacy, but we understood that. Make them feel at home and cut down the tension, and I think I was halfway successful in that endeavor.
When at age 70 you were forced to retire from the court, there was a feeling among the lawyers of this state that it was wrong to retire someone at the very prime of his career, and in fact there were even moves afoot to try to amend the Florida Constitution. But you took that retirement with your usual good grace and never complained, or as some did later challenged that provision. You declared, as I recall, that you were constitutionally senile. What reflections do you have on that forced retirement?
There's the Constitution says that mandatory retirement of all judges at 70. However, there's an amendment, and they attribute it to former Justice Caldwell to accommodate him, that if you've served out over half of your term, that you could stay past 70. And I fell in that category. My birthday was on February 2nd, and when I got off, I was almost 73. Justice Atkins had taught me that little gimmick. I wasn't aware of it. But I didn't feel any, I hated to leave because I did enjoy it, but I felt that this might not be a bad idea. And as I look back on it, as I got older, I think maybe 75 might be an appropriate time. There comes a time when you don't have as much energy, you can't have the concentration that you had for. It varies with individuals, but 75 might not be a bad age. I wouldn't go out and tear my shirt to change it. I guess if you poll the bench, all the judges, they probably would like to raise it. But those who retire have the choice of being called back to fill in. I never sought that, but some of my brethren did. They came back and sat on call or served on the DCAs or even the trial bench. I don't argue with the system.
You were the subject of the merit retention process, and although I don't recall anyone ever going after you, they did some of your brethren, and you campaigned for your brethren during those merit retention races. What do you think about that system?
In 1984, there was a screwball matter before the court, and I voted along with Justice Shaw to turn it down. And there was turned down, but Shaw and I were up for merit retention in '84, and these people took after us. So he and I were the ones that, the first ones that I know of that had to get out and campaign. And I never realized that Florida was as big and populous as it was. We would, he and I both, all over the state all the time. When we were on the bench, we'd fly back in at night and sit on the bench, hear cases, fly out again. We worked hard. I think it probably is an answer where you don't have lifetime appointments. Now, Justice Shaw got caught 6 years later in 1990, and he was alone, and he had a tough fight of it, and he survived. There was a lot of, the bar came to our help, and I came to his help in 90. He said, look, I'll never do this again. If they want to jump me, I ain't going to get out and tear my hair staying on. Now, they took after Justice Barquette. You have to have some safety valve unless you're going to have a lifetime appointment.
You were talking about the method by which we select and keep our judges in Florida. Based on your experience, what do you think the best way is to select judges?
I think merit selection, the bar worked for it for a long time, and I think it's better than the old system. You get a lot of folks, good lawyers, who would come out and take a shot at it rather than indulge in the alternative, and that is to seek election. First, it requires an awful lot of money, an awful lot of time, and it's a real pain. If you have lifetime appointment, that's fine. And it's my understanding that when the colonies originally established, these judges in New England had lifetime appointments, and they still do. They survive and survive handsomely, but that won't fly, in my opinion, in Florida. And so it's either have a lifetime appointment or some safety valve that the public can kick you off if they don't think you've done a decent job. Of course, the alternative is to run, but I think we are lots better off with our current system of merit selection and merit retention than we were before. When the governor picked anybody he wanted to, he still picks them, but he's given very little choice. And by and large, I think the committees have done a fine job statewide without regard to the particular court. I think it's here to stay. It's unfortunate that a judge can be challenged for something that he believes in and espouses, but if it goes contrary to the wishes of the public, he's put to the test. And I don't know of any better way to do it. Maybe there is one, but I'm not privy to it.
After you retired from the Supreme Court, you took a rather unique position. Will you tell us about that and your experience in Washington with Senator Graham?
Yeah. When Senator Graham was governor, he would have a young lawyer come into his office for 6 months and work. And he rotated. And when he went to Washington, he did the same thing. And so he telephoned me and wanted to know whether I would be his young lawyer for 6 months. And I laughingly said, of course. And he used to introduce me to the senators up there as his young lawyer. Well, of course, I was in my 70s at that time. It was a great experience. Lord, it was broadening. I had worked in the governor's office in 1953, but I had no dealings at this national level, and I couldn't believe how they operate and how they. It's like, I suppose you might not like sausage when you see how they're made, or hamburgers. It's amazing that as much good comes out of the Congress, as does. That was a great experience. And then I had an opportunity to either do nothing or to practice law. Chesterfield Smith suggested that I might come with Holland and Knight, and it was a good opportunity. And it's been one of the greatest experiences I've ever had. The practice of law changed since I did it pre-81. It's changed. It's lots more impersonal. There are lots more lawyers. The matter of ethics, the matter of professionalism are very serious. I think for no other reason because of the size of the bench, the size of the bar, the magnitude. So it's just been a different life. And of course, the biggest firm I ever was with, we had 20, 25 lawyers for all the big stuff. But this firm has 800 partners all over the country. And I get to see the practice from another point of view. And it's, I wouldn't trade it. Had I not come with the firm, had I just gone out and messed around, gone on my own, or whiled away the time, I would have lost a lot out of life. Now, a lot of time's gone by. I'm not what I used to be. These people are very understanding. It's still a lot of fun to me. I do whatever I can to help the cause. But the practice from the standpoint of the practitioner and the firm and the bar, I'm sure, and the bench has changed dramatically, I think, in the last 20 years.
A lot of people say that the practice is not as good as it was in the good old days, that the practice of law has decreased, that people don't do as good a job. Do you have a feeling about that? Well,
yeah, I think the degree of specialization today is infinitely more than we had. In my heyday, we had a semblance of an organization of the defense bar, and there came in the course of time the development of the plaintiffs bar, and they became organized, and I think their professionalism increased, how they did things increased, and I think today the bar is capable of doing a lot better the job than they did when I went on the court, and that's a big positive. I think the firms are larger. I think the cause of jurisprudence is better served now than it was before.
There's a feeling among many that the image of the bar has declined among the public over the last several decades. Do you feel that's true, and if so, what do you think are the things that contribute to that?
I think the image has probably undergone some downward change. I think the sheer size of the bar has made it more impersonal. We've had a lot of bad eggs, and that doesn't help matters. We have always had a lawyer or two that didn't do the right thing. But the bar is policed more now than it ever was before. If a complaint is made to the bar about a lawyer, the thing is licked into it on a professional basis, and I think handled on a professional basis. I think the public is ill-advised when they think that the bar or lawyers are a bunch of people who ne'er-do-wells or don't do the right thing, defend criminals. That's wrong. The Bill of Rights wouldn't be worth a hoot if it weren't for lawyers representing people who are charged with violation of the law. Lawyers are what makes the system work. And the Bill of Rights, which means so much to all of us. Wouldn't be worth the paper it's written on except for a vigilant and a strong bar. If somebody thinks his rights have been violated, he can find a good lawyer who will challenge it into the courts, and that's the way it should be. The lawyer may be wrong, or the litigant may be wrong, but I think it's working better today than it worked before.
What do you think we, the lawyers of today, can do to improve the profession and the way the public views our work?
I think, particularly since Justice Anstead has gotten on the court and has headed up this professionalism committee, I think the idea of professionalism has to be renewed, or that should be inculcated in the bar. By its sheer size, we're more impersonal each with the other. And we have to be, and should be reminded, maybe forcefully sometime, that we are still a profession, and that your word has to be good, and that your fellow lawyer who may be on the opposite side of a case from you has to be treated as you would want to be treated. And I think we are going I think we've gone a long way and are continuing to go a long way. A lot of work to be done because of the size of the bar. What is it, 55 or 60,000? That's a lot of folks. And so many of them, I don't mean this pejoratively, come from up the country. They didn't go to school down here, and they didn't work down here before, but they've come down here because of greener pastures, and maybe they bring a little different culture change, one that doesn't sit quite well with us. And I'm not saying that we haven't had some great lawyers come down, we have, but I think it has to be a never-ending vigilance on the part of the bench and the bar to see that the idea of professionalism is inculcated, hopefully, at the law school level.
Justice Ehrlich, what message or statement would you like to leave with the law students and lawyers and judges who might view this tape in the future?
I don't know that I really have a message as such. I think there can be gleaned from the few things that I've said that I view the role of the lawyer as being central and cardinal. It's the thing that makes the system go, that we should continue to upgrade ourselves professionally, upgrade ourselves educationally. We've got, I think, an excellent bar organization as an organization. I think there's always some improvement, but that they keep us on our toes, and if I had a wish, it's the wish that the lawyer will continue to serve in the historic role that he served for so many years, that he should continue to not only to serve in the historic role, but should help keep the system going as we know it, and should be ever mindful of the rights of others, and that the Bill of Rights is a living document, and lawyers breathe life into it happily, I think, every day, all over the country.
Thank you, Justice Ehrlich, for your time and for your statements that will form an important part of this continuing series on professionalism. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.